Hi, welcome to this video where we're going to explore some of the key insights I took from this amazingly thorough book, Note Grouping, A Method for Achieving Expression and Style in Musical Performance by James Morgan Thurmond. It's a short, concise, thorough, and highly insightful little book. Have you ever been told that your playing is a little bit choppy? It's not as expressive or as musical as it could be. It's kind of mechanical. Do you feel like you don't have as deep an understanding of the idea of motion and movement as you would like? You play a little bit like da 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 da, when I think it really should be more like dun da 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 da. What is that even? Or maybe you're listening to your teacher or performance and you're wondering, why does her phrasing just work and sound better? Like, I know she's Argerish, but there has to be something more than just intuition. Maybe you have difficulty with technique and you feel like you're missing this key little link. Ultimately, if you want to revolutionize your musical ability or teaching ability with what feels like a simple and foolproof way to understand and decode what the score is trying to tell you, this book is for you. Is it the secret formula to expressive and musical playing? I'm not really, because ultimately you can't code artistic expression, but this book does give you the foundation that gets you close to that. What you'll find in this book is a methodical breakdown of concepts that holds your hand through the concept of grouping. More on that later. There are musical examples with the score that directly connect to the concepts being explained. And these musical examples are from a variety of sources, whether it's piano, violin, symphonic or vocal works, and much more. The material may be a little bit dry and academic, but it is still accessible and 100% worth your time. I have yet to find a book that simply tells it as it is in the most fundamental way possible. Other books I've read explain the topic of grouping in a more shallow, simplified, and quick way. So if you want a foundational, almost manual-like programming cheat code to musical playing, this book might be for you. It might even be able to program an AI to play like a human. So if you have that robotic emotionalist student, you might want to try this. In order to get into the grouping of notes for musical playing, let's begin with the answer to the question, where does life or motion or expression from music come from? Thurmond states that it comes from the progression of one note to another. He says that if rhythm is dependent upon motion, it follows that the more motion there is in music, the more rhythm. And consequently, the more expression. And since expression in music, the same as in any art, may be defined as a quality or impression of movement, warmth, and life resulting from rhythmic change, like that which characterizes any living thing. Music that is mechanical, cold, lifeless, that leaves us unmoved, has lost its spontaneity and human quality. The principal difference between the thing that is alive and a dead or inanimate one is the ability to move, and it is precisely the same quality that distinguishes expressive playing from dull execution. Just as a human being is characterized by the rhythm of living, by their heartbeat, breathing, and walking, by their eating, sleeping, and working, all the different kinds of motion, so must music that is alive also have its rhythm. The pulse of the meter, the ebb and the flow of the phrases, dynamic contrast, the rise and fall of moving note groups. From this analysis, it is apparent, therefore, that if one endows their execution with the maximum amount of motion, they have at the same time performed with the greatest possible amount of expression. Okay, so basically, the more rhythm, the more motion, the more expression, the more life. But what does motion feel like when it comes to music? To answer this, let's take a look at language and poetry. I promise you, once you understand what we're talking about when it comes to language, you'll already know how to connect it to music. Let's take a look at the phrase, to be or not to be. A famous quote spoken by Hamlet from Shakespeare's play. Listen to which words are emphasized, to be or not to be. Yet we don't say to be or not to be, because that's really weird, mechanical, cold, and lifeless like a robot. We do, however, do it subtly. The natural lilt or rhythm inherent in this phrase leads you or progresses you to the next main word, to be or not to be. Ta-da, da-da, da-da, or a 1, a 2, a 3. Rhythm creates motion, but there is another characteristic that creates motion. That other characteristic is weight, or emphasis, or lack of emphasis or weight, on certain words or syllables. For example, even if we took the same rhythm but flipped the emphasis, to be or not to be, doesn't work. Ta-da, da-da, da-da. It feels like you're pumping the gas pedal and we're lurching about in the car. Da-da, da-da, da-da. If it was all monotone and rhythmic, like this, to be or not to be, da-da, 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 it also doesn't really work. It's a little bit lifeless. The rhythm inherent in the phrase creates some motion, but it's a bit on the lifeless side. It's the fact that going from a weaker emphasis to a stronger emphasis in this rhythm that works. It makes it move and it makes it come to life. This sentence in poetry terms uses Iamic Pentameter, a type of rhythmic meter or a pattern of beats. The emphasis on the words creates a sense of meter. The weaker emphasis is called thearsis. It has a lighter, lifted feel, and the stronger emphasis called the thesis has a heavier, settled feeling. Let's try another phrase this time to have a deeper sense of the weight and the motion. Imagine yourself throwing and catching a ball as you listen and try out these phrases. Catch the ball on the stronger emphasis and throw the ball on the weaker emphasis. So let's try this phrase, twinkle, twinkle, little star. So twinkle, twinkle, little star. We have strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. Do-day, 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 do. Or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And even in this rhythm, we can feel this underlying subtle motion. If we started thinking of grouping the words from strong to a weak emphasis like this, twinkle, twinkle, little star, visually, reading-wise, it makes sense. But notice how grouping of the meter affects the motion of this phrase. Do-day, 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 do. Or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The weaker syllables in the upbeat, the arsis, is the part of the meter that feels light, that has this upward progressive motion. And when you end the grouping on the weaker beat, it seems to make that energy that is generated to disappear into the ether without direction and purpose. So I'm going to make a little pause at the end of every grouping so you can get a feel for it. So you have twinkle, twinkle, little star. We have that up that wants to go somewhere, but it's not landing. Twinkle. Where's it going? Now, what if we group it the other way? So from weak emphasis to strong emphasis. So we start on the twinkle, twinkle, little star. Or we start on the beginning. So do, day, do, day, do, day, do. Or we starting on the downbeat 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We have to start somewhere, so that's why I'm starting on the twing. And then from there, you're thinking weak to strong. So twinkle, twinkle, little star. Although it breaks up the words in a visually and cognitively counterintuitive way, you can sense the movement of the weaker beat falling or moving to the stronger beat. There's that forward movement that begins to be created. Going back to the ball throwing analogy, the strong beat is like catching the weight of the ball, while the weaker beat is where the weight of the ball is thrown. Dealing with rhythm, meter, and energy is like playing with gravity in musical terms. What goes up must come down. The stronger beats have a weighted, settled, arrival-like feeling because that's where the energy lands, while the weaker beats are where the movement, the expectation, the direction, and thus where the energy is created, is that forward motion. So if I say this phrase without the pauses and think in that strong to weak grouping, Twinkle, twinkle, little star. You can feel that I'm really pounding out that meter. There's this vertical chopping. Twinkle, twinkle, super choppy. It sounds like I'm reciting or I'm thinking of the words instead of just finding the free flow of the sentence. Whereas if I'm doing the same thing but I'm thinking from weak to strong, so twinkle, twinkle, little star, the emphasis is in the correct places, but there's these subtle changes created in the grouping that makes the phrase move, flow, and have direction. So twinkle, twinkle, little star, or twinkle, twinkle, little star. Thurmond states that when these theses, the stronger beats, are accented, like in our first example, twinkle, twink, the true melodic mission of the arsis, the upbeat, is restrained, and it fades into the valleys between the thetic thumps. Consequently, the progressive function is not perceived by the listener. So you can try pausing this video and give this grouping with the phrase a try by tapping along, conducting, or throwing an imaginary ball. Feel how the hand and the words settle with the stronger beats and how it lifts with the opportunity of the weaker beats. Twinkle, twinkle, little star is in simple meter, 1 and 2 and little star. So let's try something that's grouped in threes, triplets or compound, like Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Doody doody doo-da-dee doo. Or 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. If we were to feel every beat as important and the same, it's going to sound something like this. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Which is super, super choppy and mechanical and lifeless. And you'll find that in students who really try their best to feel every single beat. If we were to group it from strong to weak, or strong, weak, weak, it's going to feel something like this. And what I'm going to do is put a little bit of a pause after each grouping so you can feel and hear where the grouping is and where the motion is wanting to go. So we have Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. You can feel that there's this motion of wanting to go up, but then it doesn't go anywhere. Humpty. Like that's it. Let's flip the grouping. We're going to go from weak, weak to strong. So we start off on the hum, and then we're going to go to dee-dum. Dee had a great fall. So the beginning, just do. Dee-do, dee-do, da-dee-do. Or we have beat 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. You can feel that there's that upbeat, the a 2, a 3. That arsis, that upbeat that's generating energy has a place to land. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the strong to weak grouping. So strong, weak, weak. And I'm not going to put the pauses in between so we can feel a little bit more of what it's like in real time. So I'm going to think strong, weak, weak. So Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Da 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 da. We still have the same emphasis, but you can feel it's very much downwards. It's very vertical. There's not a lot of motion because we're really emphasizing those thetic beats. We're losing the arsis between those thumps, as Thurmond had said. So let's flip it again. We're going to go weak, weak, strong. So we start off on the first syllable hum. We start off on the first syllable hum. Dee-dum-dee had a great fall. 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. Or do-dee-do-dee-do-da-dee-do. We still have the emphasis in the same place. They're just not as weighted, but you also get that feeling of that arsis, that upbeat, just really spinning you forward to land on the next place. Now we know what motion feels like. Movement can be created from uneven rhythm or from varying emphasis on syllables or beats. It's a gentle, subtle feeling that doesn't need to have an overemphasis so long as you follow the natural gravity of the beats. Alright, so how does this relate to music? Well, we actually already explored all the principles from meter to rhythm and motion and grouping that very easily applies to music. All we need to know now is, depending on the meter and the rhythm, which creates the beats that are naturally stronger or weaker. For example, in pairs, like simple time or pairs of eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and, it is strong, weak, strong, weak. In triple time, like 3, 4, or any compound subdivision in triplets, you have strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, 1 and 2 and in quadruple time, like 4, 4 time, or groups of 4 16th notes, we typically have strong, weak, medium, weak. 1 and I'm really overemphasizing there to be a bit more clear. And this is important because once you know the metric weights in the rhythm and any rhythmic subdivision level within the context of the meter, you have yourself a basic formula that you can apply to nearly anything in music. This is the algorithm that has gotten me out of technical and musical problems, has developed my musicality and phrasing, and gave me confidence in the musical ideas I had when I was feeling a little bit lost and didn't know if I was going on the right track. Now, once again, this may be an algorithm that you can use to bolster your artistry, but part of being an artist is also knowing when to break the rules. So while this algorithm can be a starting place that can transform mechanical playing into something that is more expressive, you also don't want to just apply this formula mindlessly, as that's also going to turn you into a robot in like a meta form in a way. Just on another level. So let's go and take a look into some musical examples. J.S. Bach wrote motives and phrases that almost exclusively begin on the arsis. He writes that the downbeat is not of its nature that strong. Let's explore this with Bach's organ fugue in G minor and how Alec Robertson sees as the correct phrasing. If we break down the weaker and stronger beats on further, it would look something like this. I'm going to group at the quarter note level as well to put some pauses between the groupings so that you can hear the grouping and feel the motion more clearly. We have rest, rest on the and. Next one is 3 and. So 3 and, 4 and, 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and, 1 and 2. I messed up a little bit in the middle, or so we have that second bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And again, you can feel that it wants to go, but then it doesn't. Like, where are we going? Nowhere. So what I'm going to do now is flip it around. We're going to do strong to weak or strong, weak, medium, weak, depending on our rhythmic subdivisions. And we're going to see where that motion is going to go and also to land. So we're going to start off with the and 3. And 3, E and a 4. And 1, E and a 2. And a 3, and 4. And 1, E and a 2. We start to get that dance-like feel. I remember a professor once told me that a lot of Bach music is really something you should be able to dance to because you get that movement to land to the other one. Now what we're going to do now, so I'm going to put a little bit together. We're going to take the strong to the weak grouping. I'm not going to put any pauses. And I'm also going to try to not overemphasize it, but let's just see what it sounds like. So strong to weak. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, strong, weak, medium, weak. So let's try it the other way. I'm going to think weak to strong. So and 3, E and a 4. The weak to strong grouping leads to the next important beat. It flows and it almost bounces you to the next beat. The weak to strong grouping starts to encourage that vitality and springy bounce on the beat. The strong to weak grouping, although brings out the beat more clearly, it loses a little bit of life. It sounds a little more vertical or stagnant or lifeless and just kind of heavy. Let's examine one more from the book. Thurmond breaks down even more at the smallest note values, and that is Wagner's Overture to Die Meister. I hope I said that right. I'm just going to play it the way that it's written so we can hear what it sounds like when we just have the music in its natural visual state. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. And now I'm going to play it in the way that he suggests, which is a weak to strong grouping. And again, I'm going to pause at the end of every grouping so that we can more clearly hear what the grouping is, but also where the motion of the melody and rhythm is going to go. So 1 E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1, E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1. Again, we kind of get this feeling that 1 E and a 2, E and a 3, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, like we want to go somewhere. And I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start on the strong and end on the weak, and this is what it'll sound like, again with the pauses and so on and so forth. So we have 1 E and a, 2 is the tied, so it's a little bit harder with this one, but I'm not going to play with the ties in between so that we can see where it starts. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1. It's really apparent in the second bar where we have that 1 E and a, so 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, it just da 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 da. Where is it going? I don't know. It wants to land somewhere. When it comes to figuring out the grouping through weak to strong beats, you can always start the smallest note value and work your way up to larger groupings. Essentially, you can analyze the motion of weak to strong groups from the level of the fastest note grouping and then expand upwards to the levels of larger groupings. Essentially, your small groups form larger and larger and larger and larger groups. You're kind of building like Lego. As you get deeper into your musical journey in your studies, you're going to find that there's not just weak to strong pulses or beats. You're not limited there. You can also start to group out larger to have weaker and stronger measures or bars and phrases and sections. This book presents very clear, broken down arguments and proofs to approach musical playing. And this video summarizes the first foundational chapters in this book, so I do encourage you to give a read, especially if something clicked for you in this video. It's not a long book, as you can see. Oh, sorry, it's been upside down the whole time. It's not a long book, as you can see. It's very thin, but it's definitely packed with an enormous amount of insight. So I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what other books you would like me to read or review or explain down in the comments below. I'll see you very soon. Happy practicing!